Hello, dear friends, it's Carly, and welcome back to my channel for another episode on Betty White. So I have, like I said on the first episode of Betty White, I have done some deep dives where I spend almost 3 hours talking about a person, and even that does not do it justice. And I say a lot on my channel in videos about learning your natal chart and whatnot, that it isn't something that just takes an hour, a couple hours. Like when you're working with a coach, it's something that it takes, 8 to 10 to 12 sessions. Like you could still be talking about new territory in the chart. And that's how I work with people one-on-one, is to meet with them every couple weeks and basically give them another chunk of their chart. And this is Stella, by the way. She wanted to be included. So yeah, I think these episodes on Betty White, where we focus into one person's massively complex energy, and you could substitute any human on the face of the planet for this process of unpacking the chart like one piece at a time. So if you haven't watched episode 1, I'm gonna say like it doesn't really matter. I mean, these episodes, they can go in any order. So feel free to catch that later. If you want to watch them in order, by all means, go for it. Who am I to rain on your orderly parade? You do you. I'm here for you no matter what. So yeah, this episode will be just some different parts from what we talked about in the first episode. In the first episode, just to quickly recap, we covered, just mentioned her big 3, which is Capricorn Sun, Virgo Moon, and Leo Rising. I guess we're done holding hands now. So Capricorn Sun, Virgo Moon, Leo Rising, and we also got into some of the major aspect patterns in her chart. So that's the lines in the middle and the conversation that the planets are having with each other. Those lines are also how energy gets tied together. So even though you have planets all around the chart, those aspect patterns in the middle, they show you how your energy is like the inner workings between each of the different facets of your energy. So we looked at hers. She's got lots of rare aspect patterns, which is cool. An abundance of those. So we talked in depth about that. We also briefly looked at the transits on the date of her passing, December 31st, 2021. So I mentioned a couple of things there, and basically, that episode was 40 minutes, and I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface of all the cool things about Betty White's energy that I wanted to mention, but like, how can you say everything in 40 minutes? So, this whole idea of, let's just, like I would with a client, let's just take it one chunk at a time and let's cover it all over the course of however long that takes. So, I'm like taking on Betty White's natal chart as my new pro bono client, and we're all going to learn together. We're all going to study it together. The cool thing about this is, like today's topics are a lot more accessible to everyone. Like we're going to talk about her, I have a hair on I got a floofs, attack of the floofs. Like we're going to talk about her Capricorn Sun, her Capricorn Venus, and her Aquarius Mercury. Those are personal placements, which means they move very quickly. Like all 3 of those make a full lap around the zodiac every single year. So that means that there are people of every single age on the planet who have these placements. They are not specific to age. Other things like her Pluto and Cancer, for example, very much speak to the fact that she was born in the 1920s. So there's like very few people alive on the planet right now who have Pluto and Cancer. So yeah, I'd say there's like very few of those left. Obviously, she would have been 100 here in a few days on the 17th. So anyways, we're going to talk about these placements. So like if you happen to have these placements, then obviously you can understand your placements better by studying Betty White's chart. And if you're somebody who is interpreting astrology like on the regular for yourself, some of these things that we're going to talk about, like the sun in the 6th house and Venus in the 6th house, for example, she's got all three of Venus, Sun, and Mercury, all three in the 6th house. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And all of us have those three planets at some point during the year transit our 6th house. So the themes that we're going to talk about that she lived with, we all go through those themes for at least a few weeks every year, maybe longer, depending on retrograde schedules and whatnot. So there's so much that we can learn by studying somebody else's chart. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to like study Betty's chart on an ongoing basis. And if you're into it, that's cool. Follow along and see what we can all learn by studying her energy. So I think that's all the housekeeping stuff I wanted to talk about. So my goal is for these to be like 40-minute episodes, and that is essentially how much material I'm able to cover in one of my one-on-one 90-minute sessions. I generally touch on 2 to 3 pieces of the natal chart for, this time, this conversation. And if we're not, for those pieces we focus in, and everything else in the chart, we're not looking at that right now. So that's very much how we're going to take this today, as far as we're looking at her 6th house planets, which includes her Capricorn Sun, her Capricorn Venus, and her Aquarius Mercury. And because the 6th house is actually associated with the 6th sign of the zodiac, which is Virgo, Capricorn and Aquarius, they are a different archetype compared to the 6th house. So this is a perfect example of what often happens when we get into interpreting our natal chart. It's like you have a planet in a particular sign, let's say Mercury in Aquarius. Aquarius is associated with the 11th house. So if your Aquarius Mercury is in the 11th house, you're golden, because the whole entire interpretation is telling the exact same story. If your Aquarius Mercury is in the 6th house, like hers is, now it requires this whole intuitive process to like tie together the Aquarius Mercury plus Mercury in the 6th house. Okay, like that all molds together to give you what, right? Like that's the question. That's the $1 million question as we move through interpreting these pieces of the natal chart. And some of us are fortunate to have a lot of placements in the correlating signs and houses, so there's like less effort involved. But especially I feel for those people who have like the exact opposite, like Taurus and Scorpio are the 2nd and 8th houses respectively. And those people who, for example, have like Taurus in the 8th house and Scorpio in the 2nd house, it's like, am I coming or going? Like what's even happening here? So it's a whole process to weave together sign plus house if it's not in the same like associated house. So that's what we're going to do, is we are going to cover these 3 planets, the signs that they're in, plus we're going to ground it all back to the 6th house foundation of the 6th house stellium of personal planets. So when you see something like that, when you see like a collection of planets in your chart, like all really close together, that's called a stellium. Now, astrologers out there there's so many things that are debatable inside astrology. Like astrology is associated with the 9th house, where people just like to talk about ideas and whatnot. So there's a lot out there about like what is a stellium. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a concentration of energy. Like, I don't care if it's generational planets, if it's personal planets, if it's points instead of planets, if it's luminaries instead of planets, I don't care. It's a concentration of energy. So that is personally how I think about stelliums. I interpret the impact of the stellium based on what planets are included, what signs are included, what houses are included. So in this case, we have a lot of pieces. Like, we're only looking at these 3 things, and already there's like 10 pieces that we need to weave together to understand her 6th house stellium. So you can see how these 40-minute episodes are going to play out. Is that just not comfortable? I'm so sorry. that I couldn't have provided a more comfortable lap for your napping enjoyment, and you think you can make it work? She's gonna power through. Okay, we have green light here, folks. So, without further ado, let's dive into this thing. Because the commonality between all of it is the 6th house, generally that's where I would start. So in this case, the 6th house, like how you can understand houses in general, is that these 12 chunks of your natal chart, these 12 pieces of the pie, they do come together to create a whole. Our life is multifaceted. There's just naturally multiple sides to a human being's existence. For example, the 4th house compared to the 10th house. The 4th house rules home, the 10th house rules our career. So you see how if you spend more time in one house, you're naturally not spending as much time in the other houses. Another example, the 5th house rules being creative. The 11th house rules like spending time with your friends and building up your network and like making new acquaintances and doing your marketing and putting yourself out there. Like there's all of these different sides to the puzzle. And so the 6th house, that life area, all of them are multifaceted. You know, I blew through 4 in like quick order, and that just doesn't do anything justice. As far as anybody who really wants to learn astrology, the long version is always way better, in my opinion. I'm never short on words, so let's throw some words at this bad boy and see how many dimensions of the 6th house we can find. The first one that I always start with, because is the 6th house is where we begin to transition from this internal world of the self to how do we fit into this grander scheme of the collective? How do my skills provide service, like valuable service to the collective? Like think doctor. You know, doctors don't just get born, they study and they learn and they practice and they go through years of residency and blah, 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 blah. There's like a whole process to becoming a doctor. And that's why there's not just infinite number of them running around. So doctors are extremely valuable in the service that they provide to the collective. And really, like doctor is an easy example because we all know generally like the process of how doctors have to work really hard to become one, and then we go to them and we trust them and we rely on them and their skills to help us when we enter that territory where their expertise is what's needed. So being of service with your technical skills to the collective that you serve, that's really what Virgo's all, not Virgo in the 6th house, right? Like the 6th sign of the zodiac and the 6th house, like they naturally correlate with each other. So they do fit together. And it is very interesting that Betty has a Virgo moon in her 2nd house, which is Taurus's house. So like there's a whole interconnected thing happening as we really like branch out and explore what's going on. So not only does she have a Virgo moon, she's got this 6th house stellium of personal planets, which is also associated with Virgo. So that's why, you know, they do sound a lot alike. I will not get on a soapbox about this, but I will mention that they are not the same thing. You know, the Virgo archetype and the 6th house archetype, they are different. So that's my bad that I blurred the lines for half a second between them. So the 6th house is about service. In the pursuit of those technical skills, which you will eventually use to serve other people, another high frequency of the 6th house is where we humble ourselves as the student in front of a wise teacher. So like this reminds me of the Netflix documentary on Betty, which is heartfelt, so good. It's like an hour long. You must watch, like if you gotta watch it. She talks about in there about like early on in her TV career, how like she basically was just a sponge, like just learned it all, just like how the cameras worked, how the lighting worked, how the scheduling worked, how the crew was doing all the different things. Like she was soaking up all of it. as she was on those sets, she was learning everything that she could from everybody that she came in contact with. And that is one of the brilliances of the sixth house, is that you think about how much you lose out on when you think you already know everything there is to know. When you think, I'm the master of my field, you're no longer in learning mode. You're no longer soaking up the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that will keep you the master in your field. You know, I'm not saying you're not the master. I'm just saying, aren't you still the student? You know, like that's where the sixth house has its shadow and its light side. The light side is that you are a perpetual student. You have the humility that it takes to be open to what other people have gained as far as wisdom from their experiences. The sixth house is also often associated with like aunts and uncles, and how like basically he goes into this whole thing about aunts and uncles. Like it is so drawn out, and I hadn't ever realized like the vast impact that our aunts and uncles have on us. And really you can substitute in mentors of any kind. These could be any kinds of like older figures in your world who have knowledge and wisdom on issues that are pertinent to what you're going through right now. And you have a trust type bond with them. There's also a comfort level with them where they're not your parent. He goes into a whole thing about like with your aunt, like don't tell my mom, but, and then it's this whole thing about how, you know, maybe this like 16-year-old girl is like maybe becoming sexually active and she's thinking about birth control and whatever. She goes to her aunt to talk about it, not her mom, because there's that more open, trusting, less close, but still trusting type relationship. And a lot of times that's family, but like I said, it really bleeds into mentors of any kind who show up in your world. Like when I was in high school, I had an advisor in FFA who like really saw potential in me and just like literally like metaphorically reached into my soul and like pulled it out, and I could see it then too. And I don't even know where I would be at this point without that person's influence in my life. So yeah, there's this place in our world, in our inner world, where we are willing to learn from others. And Betty has her sun, Venus, and Mercury all in this energy of wanting to soak up the wisdom from anybody that she comes in contact with. And I think that it's very clear how humble she really was, how open she really was to like be witness to anybody else, like to just naturally humble herself so that literally anybody that you meet in your life probably has something that they can teach you. Like you could just be soaking up wisdom and knowledge from every single person that you meet, regardless of how wise they think they are. Like you could be learning wisdom from them. And I feel like she not only had that, but with it being her sun, it was like the kind of the core of her gift was that she was this humble, serene, peaceful person. And she has so much depth to the rest of her chart, and we're going to get in all of that. But her ability to learn from other people and to be open to whatever she was going to learn next, instead of really getting into that arrogant place of like, I know and I'm the leader and I'm the, and it's interesting, and this is where you step into kind of like having to marry together house plus sign. So her Capricorn sun, her Capricorn Venus also, for that matter, both of those, Capricorn is very much the leader. Capricorn knows what it wants and likely is going to be able to figure out all by itself how to get there. So it's a very like independent, like solitude type energy, Capricorn. Capricorn is also the sign where, and I'm going to spend some time here with Capricorn, maybe a little bit more than Aquarius at this point. We can always come back to Aquarius when we talk about her descendant opposite her Leo rising. I'm going to go a little further into Capricorn because the sun is in Capricorn right now, as is Venus, both of these things, and Pluto. Mercury will be making another tiny appearance in Capricorn here very shortly as well. So there's just a lot going on in Capricorn energy right now, which means like all of us are feeling that. All of us are feeling this influence of the Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Venus. So this is one of those perfect examples where by studying her chart and feeling our way into what is Capricorn, what does it mean for the Sun to be in Capricorn, what does it mean for Venus to be in Capricorn, those are affecting all of us right now. That's mass consciousness energy, what we're living right now. She just happened to carry it her whole entire life. So Capricorn, when I think of Capricorn, I think of visionary. I think of sea goat. Sea goat is not a real thing. It's a mythological creature where basically the idea is that the sea goat is built to be able to travel any landscape this physical planet has to offer. The goat can climb to the top of an unclimbable mountain. The sea part of it, the fish part of it, can swim to the deepest oceans. So it can reach the highest heights, it can go to the lowest depths, it can go wherever it needs to go to do its great work. Capricorn is extremely serious. Capricorn is very self-disciplined. Capricorn has the resourcefulness to make 2 cans of beans last for a month. If that's all the food that they have to survive on, they'll still have a little bit of beans a month from now because they will ration themselves and they will suffer a little bit every day to put off death, to put off the worst case scenario. They'll just budget. Easy peasy. Depends on how emphasized your Capricorn is, right? Like it makes you wonder, like, what planets do I have in Capricorn? What's in my chart? What houses is my Capricorn in? So Capricorn, what else do I think about? I got an itch here that's probably going to trash the mic. Oh, but it was necessary. Going back to that idea that the 6th house is where we humble ourselves to be able to learn from teachers, compared to Capricorn, there is such a confidence in one's own ability. So the shadow side of Capricorn is that you come off as a know-it-all. You come off as like a driven, insensitive jerk because you're so concerned about your goal and like nobody else matters. So when you think about like marrying together Capricorn and the 6th house, what a beautiful thing. What a really beautiful thing to more internalize and channel that Capricorn energy into the ultimate life question of how do I be of service to other people? Like, I don't need to be the leader just to be the leader. I ultimately have confidence in my own ability to learn what I need to learn to be of service to others. So it's just like a really beautiful way, I think, of like marrying those 2 energies together. Like, she had a Capricorn sun. She came on that day. Remember, the sun moves 1 degree per day, so it spends about 30 days per sign, 30 degrees per sign. So she came on that day, January 17th, 1922. So she had a Capricorn sun. She had a Capricorn Venus. She had Aquarius Mercury. But she chose her birth time so that she had this Leo rising, which comfortably situated her, all of those Capricorn planets and that Aquarius planet inside this 6th house, where I'm going to use all of that energy and I'm going to channel every single bit of it into how can I be of practical service to other people. And that mindset, I feel like, is so obvious when you look at her career, when you listen to other people talk about her and how she was to work with. It was delightful. She was delightful to work with. The other thing that I'll add about the 6th house in general is that it is work related. It's very much about like our daily routine, our daily schedule. What does that look like? You wake up in the morning and then what happens? So when you have a lot of 6th house energy, chances are you're going to be very into your routines. There's going to be like almost life force energy. When you have your sun, especially in the 6th house, there is life force energy inside of your daily routine, inside of like having a set of things that you do on a daily basis that help you show up as the best possible version of yourself out in the world. whatever that looks like. Is it exercise? Is it reading? Is it journaling? Is it meditation? Is it drinking your coffee with your partner? Is it like, what is it that time well spent? Because when you do that, you feel really good, and then you go out in the world and you use that good feeling to give it away, to help other people feel supported and seen and heard. So her Capricorn energy in the 6th house, it in my opinion, it reinforces that spirit of humble service, like almost like marrying together. Like when your sun is in Capricorn, you have this mission, you have this like soul mission, this great work that is the top priority above everything else. There is like an ultimate self-discipline, and you will tolerate so much deprivation if it means that it's going to advance your soul mission. So there is like so much stamina and staying power. Like one of the shadow sides of Capricorn energy is that they'll actually kill their physical vessel trying to reach their goal. That's why you do have to come out of your Capricorn energy every once in a while. Like go get some water energy, go get some Taurus, chill, like go get some Gemini. Like let's just be curious and do pointless things, random things that just like help our brain feel free and clear. Like let's just take a break from the Capricorn energy. So you do have to balance it outwardly into other areas of your life. And so that's where, like, when you look at her chart as a whole, it is very balanced. It creates all this tension because there were such pronounced various sides to her personality. She has multiple chunks of energy that are wanting to be expressed. And through that 6th house concentration of personal planets, like I just feel like it's such a center. They say anyway, the sun is the center of our personality. So I feel like this is like the center of everything else she was doing. She was doing it to be of service to people in the world, period. She worked hard to make that possible. And that's undeniable when you look at the life that she lived. So Venus, this is really interesting just based on Venus's, I say that, it's really interesting for lots of reasons, but Venus as an archetype is commonly associated with love. Like everything else in astrology, there are so many more facets than just that. But let's start with that. So love, and romantic love especially, you can learn a lot about your love life by checking out your Venus, your Mars also, and just seeing like what are those planets up to in your chart. And so for her, she's got Venus in Capricorn in the 6th house, like that's associated with Virgo. So 2 earth signs that are very hardworking. And if you look at her love life, like she had 3 marriages and 2 of them were extremely short and early in her life. And then it seems like she really just prioritized her career, and she was single for a stretch of time until she met Alan. And then they had, I think, a nearly 20-year marriage that was just like, yes, the type of love that everyone deserves in this life. And I think the beautiful thing about Venus and Capricorn, one, is that it really does say, as far as like marrying this like love life, love placement with this like hardworking, great work, like what is your legacy that you came to leave behind? Like how do you marry the 2 together? One is that you are extremely likely to meet your person through work. That is especially like with Capricorn and the 6th house, because the 6th house represents like our day-to-day work experience, and Capricorn represents like our legacy, like us climbing that mountain. So it's like you're gonna meet your person while you're climbing the mountain. So if you have Venus in Capricorn and you want a love life, start climbing the mountain of your great work, and they're on that track somewhere. So yeah, it's like that. And she met Alan at work, playing Password, I believe. I think he was the what's it called, host of Password. So yeah, it's like that's kind of reassuring, like when you figure out that, oh, like they really are like my love life and my work life, like they are tied together. You can't escape that with these kinds of placements, with the Venus in Capricorn, Venus in the 6th house. So, I mean, that's kind of comforting to know. The other piece that I want to mention about Venus in Capricorn and Venus in the 6th house, both of those placements both say, so she's got a double dose of it. Basically, Venus is also talking about our inner animal. Like it's associated with Taurus and Libra. Venus rules both of those. But when you take it from the Taurus side, Venus very much represents our animal instincts and our ability to calm ourselves down, our ability to, inside of ourselves, find peace, our ability to stretch out in the sun and take a yummy nap, our ability to just let go and melt into our presence in this moment. To itch our face when you gotta itch. It's simple, right? So Venus points towards like how you can relax. Like if you are wanting to chill out, if you've had a really rough ride emotionally lately, you can look into your Venus placement to better understand like where can you find some soothing and some restoration so that you can find your balance and your own inner harmony. And Venus in Capricorn, Venus in the 6th house, both of these say, go to work. Get your ass to work and you will feel better. You'll feel more like yourself. You'll feel calmer and more grounded, more peaceful on the inside if you go to work. So this is one of those moments where I personally have to take a step back and evaluate my own messaging around how I put stuff out there. Like I have a video that's in the queue that's going to be released soon on the channel called 3 Things Self-Care Is and 3 Things Self-Care Is Not. And me personally, I am in a lifetime where I am leaving behind hard work and routines and schedules, and I am merging into my solitude and emotional experience. So a lot of times when I talk about self-care, I come to it from an angle of practicing solitude and practicing like introspection and going inward and emotional intelligence and all of that, because that's my journey, what I'm trying to work on in this lifetime. Betty White is someone who was very much living something opposite to that. Like her soothing, her self-soothing and her self-care was in her work projects. So when you look at like how prolific her career really was, like she was like soothing herself by working that hard. And in that sense, it's really good for her spirit that she worked that hard. That was probably what helped, going back to the first episode where we talked about the massive amount of tension that she's carrying in her energy, that she was carrying it. I'm going to practice her being past tense, even though, she's not. But anyways, yeah, like she had this massive tension and this little cluster of planets in the 6th house that said like, go to work and you'll feel better. And she did, and she did. So being able to understand the houses of the planets that you have, you can see how drastically it can change a placement. Like this Capricorn sun that says like have a vision and go there, and like no matter who gets in your way, like just focus on the vision. The 6th house is very much like looking at the individuals in front of you and seeing like what are their needs, what are their practical needs. And in the moment, this is how the 6th house energy works. Like in the moment of feeling their practical needs, something grows and blossoms inside you that now you like almost rise to this occasion of being who they need you to be. Like what are their needs? You grow that inside of yourself, and then you are that so that you can help them with their needs, because that's just who you are. That's the soul that is in there. I want to add this piece on, and I know that we're probably not going to get to the Aquarius Mercury part of the 6th house stellium, which is, oh my gosh, that's a wild ride all by itself. So maybe next time we cover the Mercury in Aquarius and her Aquarius descendant. So with the 6th house, anytime I see a lot of planets here, basically there's a light side and a shadow side to everything. When we say go to work and you'll feel better, it's true, because that is the light side of like finding, there's a light and dark side to Capricorn too, where work takes on a much deeper meaning. It's like, are you working just to work, or are you working at something that lights your soul on fire? Like, did you give birth to a vision and now you have this picture in your mind of like wanting to buy a school bus and renovate it and live on the road and like do all of this? Like, did you give birth to that vision and now you're doing everything in your power to like walk towards this vision? Or, you know, did you see something where it's like, yeah, that person did that and that looks kind of cool and they have all these fans and I'd like to have fans, so I'll just do what they did and I'll follow their recipe. Because like, if you're working hard at somebody else's recipe, I heard this awesome analogy this morning from a different astrologer, Haley Comment Astrology. I watch lots of things from her channel, so highly recommend. She said, like, basically, like, Capricorn is like a ladder. Like, Capricorn energy, it's the ability to climb and climb and climb and climb. Even if it takes a really long time, you can get to the top of the ladder. Capricorn energy can, it's able. The thing is, and this is very important, it's like the most important part happens at the very beginning, when you decide which wall did you put your ladder on. You know, like if you are trying to clean out your gutters and you prop your ladder up on a tree that is nowhere near your house, you can climb to the top of that ladder, no problem, but your gutters aren't up there. So it matters. We're not just working hard to work hard. It matters a lot. What are we actually trying to do? What is the great work that we're trying to contribute to this world? And that's where, like, I was kind of looking at a future episode where I go through Betty's, her peace markers is what I want to call them. I've never looked at a chart like this before, but just her entire aura gave off such a peacefulness. And especially when you look at how much tension there was inside of her, the fact that she gave off this peace, it feels like that peaceful heart of service that the sixth house is really all about was really the center of her being. And in all of this tension, she found how to masterfully put all of these different pieces of her energy together so that she could be of the utmost service to the collective. And she did a beautiful job of radiating peace for like 80 years out into the world through popular culture. Like, how many people can you really say have done that, like, as human? I mean, it's just such a short list that she's on. Such a legendary character, and I absolutely adore her energy and like channeling that peace that she really portrayed. It's a privilege, it's an honor to be able to feel that energy, and then to be able to read her chart and to spend some time unpacking like these beautiful placements, because every single energy has a light side and a dark side, and Capricorn is one of those where, you know, they get labeled as boring, they get labeled as dry, they get labeled as, you know, overbearing and like not concerned enough with other people's well-being. And this is a season for also giving some appreciation to the light side of what Capricorn is capable of, what you can do with a lifetime if you have a vision in mind of something that you would like to leave with the collective. And I think she wanted to leave us with more peace. She was awesome at making people laugh, and when you think about laughter, it breaks tension. It opens us up to feeling better. And when we feel better, life gets better. When we feel better, we're kinder to each other. When we feel better, we're kinder to ourselves. We're gentler with animals. We're gentler with the planet. And she knew that, like on a deep intuitive level, she knew that if you can get people to laugh, you can change the world. And I genuinely think like that's how she channeled her sixth house, was through, I'm going to be of service by making people laugh. And like, how cool to look at Capricorn energy and sixth house energy in terms of like her comedy, her ability to show up and be a light in the world. Like, we haven't even gotten into her Leo rising yet, her Leo Neptune, like that was her service. So if you have a lot of sixth house planets, like, I hope this helped like open up your mind as far as like what being of service like really means, and what that looks like as far as like cultivating your own energy on a daily basis so that when you go out in the world, you have something radiant to offer, whatever that looks like for you personally. Dear friends, thank you for tuning in to another Betty White episode. Me and Stella really appreciate your presence in this space and for hanging out with us today. I am going to be working on another Betty White episode, and we are going to take it one bite at a time until we eat the whole thing. We're going to eat up the whole natal chart. Nom, 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 nom. Yep, it's delicious and yummy, and that's why we're going to do that. So check out the channel. There's lots of stuff on there. You know, subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you found any value here. All of those nudges really help my channel. I am still in the very early days of growing my YouTube channel, and in the early days of experimenting with what works for me, what's good at getting attention on the platform, what's good at helping me feel better inside of myself and like channeling my own creativity. And I'm finding a happy medium between all of these things and focusing in and like kind of swimming down this deep well that was Betty White's energy and using her natal chart to interpret her energy feels like just a fun place to hang out for a while. So I thank you for your attention on this material, and I'll be back soon with more on Betty's chart. So if you have any questions about anything that you've seen or things that I have talked about that you'd like me to expand on a little bit, please leave those in the comments and I'll be sure to address them next time. Until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves, no matter what that looks like for you. I'll let you, feel it out for yourself. And hey, so will I.